Hi, and welcome to the Health Begins with Moms show. I am Dorit Palvanov, your host. On this podcast, I will share insights and interviews on health, parenting, and explore the question of what does it take to thrive as women, wives, and mothers. Now, let's get going with today's episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Health Begins with Mom podcast. This is Dorit Palvanov, your host. Today on the show, we are talking about body image, which, as you know, and I'm sure if you're listening to the show, you're either a mom, a parent who is either raising a boy or girl. As you know, I'm raising 3 girls. So this conversation is very, very relevant to me. Today, we're talking with Marci Warhaft. And she's a body image advocate, founder of the Fit versus Fiction workshops, and author of the Body Image Survival Guide for Parents, helping toddlers, tweens, and teens thrive, and the blogger for Huffington Post. After battling her own body image issues, Marci created her Fit versus Fiction program to tear down the dangerous myths related to beauty and fitness and empower children with the self-esteem they need to tune out negative messages and be proud of who they are instead of judging themselves for who they think they're not. I've heard Marci speak at a local event and instantly loved her message and her mission, and I'm super, super excited to bring her to you. Hi, Marci. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
So first of all, I wanted to congratulate you for being one of the top 100 health influences in Canada. That's so excited. Yeah, I've seen the picture of you in the Optimized magazine. I just wanted to say that you definitely deserve this acknowledgement. So congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. It's a huge honor. There's lots of amazing people involved, and it's great to just do my part in something I believe in.
Right. So I know you're a mom, and you know this podcast is for moms and families. So I know you're a mom of 2 boys. And my first question is, what are you loving about being a mother right now?
I have 2 teenagers. You know what? I find it really interesting as your kids get older, and you see how much they are their own people. I've got 2 boys, 16 and 19, who have similarities, but they're also very, very different. And I find it so interesting at this age to see the people that you've helped create, but who are their own individual people. And I love seeing them become who they're going to become. I find that really exciting.
Yeah. Well, good answer. So let's talk about your book. I loved your book. As I mentioned before we started recording, I read it cover to cover. And I even mentioned to Marci that when she brought the book for me, my husband said, "Oh, why do you have another copy? We actually already have it." So I even forgot that when I heard you speak, I bought the book, and I just I forgot that I have it. So thank you for bringing it for me again. So the second time I actually read it cover to cover, and I'm so glad I did. I have so many questions to ask you, but before we begin, I wanted to ask you to share a bit about your story and how you came to do the work that you currently do in the world. And I'd also love to know the reason behind the name Fit versus Fiction.
Okay, well, I didn't set out to do this at all. This was not my plan. Life had different plans for me, as it often does. I always say I grew up very, very confident. I was a very confident kid. I was brought up to believe in my abilities. I could do anything that I wanted to do. I was very active. I danced. I did sports. I came from a single mother, pretty much, who told me that I was beautiful, but that I was also intelligent, and what I said had worth. And so on paper, I'm not somebody who should have suffered from any kind of self-esteem issues or body image issues. But when I was 17, I went through a major trauma where my older brother passed away. I was 17, he was 21. And what happened was my self-esteem died right along with him. I always say that his death gave birth to an eating disorder, because what happens oftentimes when we can't deal with trauma or something huge in our life, we look for something else, subconsciously even. And for my 17-year-old brain and my 17-year-old heart, his loss was too much for me to handle. And so I thought, what's the one thing I can handle? One thing I can control, my body. And I also didn't feel worthy enough to be here on this planet if he wasn't. So I felt that I couldn't just be normal if I was going to be here. I had to be spectacular. And I didn't feel spectacular. So I thought, well, if I'm not going to be smart enough or pretty enough, well, I better be skinny enough. That's just how my teenage brain worked. And so I spent, what ended up being the next 25 years battling an eating disorder. And then as a child, as a wife, as a mother, and all of those different stages brings different guilt and shame and fear and anger. And it's horrifying. And it nearly killed me physically, emotionally, psychologically, until I went into recovery when I was in my 30s and my kids were small. And I had given up on myself, but I felt that my kids deserved a mother that was healthy. And I got healthy. And when I did, at the time, I thought I don't want to have to even think about body image issues. But with 2 young kids in school, I did not like the messages that they were getting. I didn't like that they were being taught that health related to weight. I always believed that it's not about weight loss, it's about health gain. I didn't like that every time you turn on the TV or opened a magazine or turned on your computer that we were dealing with messages telling us that we weren't good enough and that we had to change who we are to fit in. I didn't like that kids as young as 4 years old didn't want to go to school because they didn't like the way they looked. And I felt compelled to do something about it. I had been a fitness instructor for many, many years, had quit, and then decided that I needed to send a different message. And so Fit versus Fiction was my way. I just started going to schools and speaking about what does it mean, fit versus fiction. So we think oftentimes we get physical appearance confused with physical fitness. And we think that how we look is a good indication of how fit we are. And it's not always. So I was saying what's really fit and what just appears to be fit. So Fit versus Fiction was born. And it went from that to talking about media manipulation and photoshopping and tons of things. And it started with 4th graders, and now I speak to 1st graders, both boys and girls and parents. Yeah. So it just it wasn't something I planned. It just became something that I couldn't, once I started talking about it, I couldn't stop talking about it.
Yeah. So let's get to talking about your book, The Body Image Survival Guide for Parents. And I want to read a little excerpt from the introduction, which really spoke to me. Okay. So you go like this. Let's face it, becoming a parent can be as scary as it is exciting. And despite our best efforts to be as prepared as humanly possible, there are some situations that you may never see coming. We expect our kids, regardless of what age they are, to deal with a certain amount of worry now and then, but there are certain concerns that just make more sense than others. Having to reassure your child that you'll be home soon the first time you leave her home with a babysitter, or spending a few minutes before bedtime clearing his closet of monsters, is to be expected. But having to convince your stressed out 6-year-old that her nightgown or snowsuit does not in any way make her look fat is not the kind of thing most of us are prepared for. And I think when I read that, it so resonated with me. But I wanted to start our conversation the same way that your book is laid out, which is from younger age to older. So the first chapter of the book is from ages 0 to 3, and it's called, Do I Look Fat in These Diapers? And you know what? When I read that, I thought are you serious? This is insane. I can't even believe this is possible. So can you talk about why children this young are struggling with body image and weight?
Well, I think the truth is the messages are everywhere. And the first chapters, from 0 to 3, is really for the parents. So I talk about how when you're pregnant and you baby-proof your house by putting things on the corners of sharp tables to make your kids safe, or plugging the outlets so they don't get electrocuted. You can do the same thing with body image. So you can prepare your house so when your kids are that little, they're getting good messages from the beginning. For example, take away fitness magazines and fashion magazines you may have, and just surround your house with pictures of people that you know, friends, family, so their kids are seeing from the beginning pictures of real people. Make sure that there are games in my book that you can play with kids from very, very little, even before they're talking, that are body image, self-esteem building games. So the first part is just ways that we can kind of be proactive. So when our kids are at an age where they're meeting other kids, where they're watching TV, that they're going to be already, there's a cushion there of self-esteem that protects them. But as far as even toddlers, a lot of that, I have to say, comes from fear with adults around them. And I'm not, it's not a judgment thing. It's so hard as a parent. You want your kid to be as healthy and as happy as possible. But I've met parents who, when their kids are not even a year old, are afraid of what they're feeding them because they're afraid they're too chubby. They're afraid of them having a weight issue before they can even stand up on their own. And so this fear that we have as parents, that trickles down to our kids. So we have to be really, really, really careful about that. There are things where I've heard little nicknames where we're saying to our kids, I knew one girl who was saying her parents always called her nicknames relating to being chubby. And as a kid, it's cute, but it doesn't stay cute when they're a little bit older. So we have to be really, really careful about the messages that we give. So when they're that young, it's really about the people that are around them. Because as parents at that age, we still have control over what they see and who they talk to. So it's a big responsibility on us to make sure that they're surrounded by positive messages.
Right. And in the book, you also talk about role modeling. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about how are we moms unintentionally sort of like sabotage ourselves and also are creating this. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's really hard. I say all the time, there's a statistic that says by the time a girl is 17, she's seen over 250,000 messages from the media telling her what she's supposed to look like. So if you think that by the time a girl's 17, she's seen 250,000 negative messages, well, think about her mom, right? We've seen so much. So it's very hard for us to be immune to those feelings as well. But we have to be so careful around our kids. I say this is the one time it's okay to lie to your kids. And what I mean by that is I never want us to be putting ourselves down in front of our children, ever. Because even if you say you're beautiful, but I have to lose weight, they're not hearing that you're beautiful. They're just hearing them.
I need to lose weight.
And also to our kids, we're all beautiful. So if we're saying, oh, mommy looks tired today, or mommy gained weight, mommy looks old today, then our kids are looking at us going, but she's beautiful. So if I think she's beautiful, but she thinks she's not, then how am I seeing myself? So I think it's very important for us to show our kids how to love themselves by showing them how we love ourselves, even if we don't feel it. So I always say, let your kids hear you compliment yourself. I was speaking to a group of kids, elementary school, so I think they were maybe grade 5. And I was talking about how as women especially, we have a problem taking a compliment. So oftentimes someone will say, you look great. And instead of saying, thank you, we say, oh, I gained weight, or, oh no, I didn't sleep very much last night. Like, we just can't take it. Yeah. And as I was saying that, there were 2 girls in the front that went, that's my mom. No, that's my mom. Because that's what they hear. So what we have to do is change that and say, you know what? I love my arms because I get to hug you with them. I love my belly because that's where you were for 9 months, or that's where you put your head when you're watching TV. I love my thighs because I can dance with you and run around. I love my body. I love myself. I love my brain. I love my smile. It's not vain. It's a great, powerful image about loving yourself. And by loving ourselves, we teach our kids that it's okay to love themselves.
Right. And Marci, it's true, but it's so hard to do, because I know, like, from the clients that I work with, and they are exactly those moms in that age group, moms of toddlers. And so many times it's just this generational pattern, because you might have been that girl who was raised by a mom, and then your mom was raised by, a mom who also didn't love herself. So it's really hard to do, but it is definitely possible. And that's the work that I do, is really giving you your power. It's so crucial, because especially when we are becoming moms and we are raising these little human beings, it's so important. So yeah, I totally agree. Thank you. All right, so let's move on to talking about the next age group. It's ages 4 to 8, and this is actually where both of my oldest girls are. So it's very relevant to me. So in your book, you say, in 2009, a study done by the University of Central Florida revealed that nearly half of 3 to 6 year year-olds worried about being fat. In 1970, the average age when females started dieting was 14. By 1990, the average age had dropped to 8. What is going on?
Yeah. Well, because if you think about it now, also there's so much media, right? When we were growing up, I remember there were, I don't know, 5 channels. Now there's hundreds of channels on television. Plus you've got the internet that you're on, and there's so many diet ads. And I mean, it's Facebook and everything else, but we can't get away from the whole diet mentality. The diet industry is a $40 billion industry. So, I mean, they're making tons and tons of money. Especially at different times of year too, when there's a huge push on it. But we can't escape that. It's everywhere. It's not uncommon to be sitting somewhere and hearing someone talk about their diet. It happens all the time, especially if you're in a restaurant or in your coffee shop or something. Somebody's talking about their weight or their new diet plan or something. So it's not surprising that our kids pick up on that. Kids go to school. I cannot tell you how many parents have contacted me saying that their kids are coming home from school being called fat or uncomfortable with their weight, and they are from kindergarten up. So it's part of our makeup now. It's part of our society. So why are they feeling this way? Well, because unfortunately it's become white noise. We don't even notice it anymore when people are talking about their weight or dieting or food. We don't even hear it because it's just such a normal part of our day. But we have to change that, especially the first time that you hear your child talk about weight or see a change in how they're eating or an over concern about numbers or calories. We need to put a stop to that right away. I had a parent when I first started doing this show me I think she was 3. Her 3-year-old daughter would run around saying, "I'm so fat, I'm so fat." And her mom said, "But we all do that. It's not a big deal." And I said, "Yes, we all do that, and it is a big deal, and we need to stop that." And the minute we realize that it is a big deal, that's when change is going to happen.
Right. And I also love how in this chapter you talk about toys and the evolution of the Barbie doll. Can you mention that as well?
Well, okay. Well, yeah, Barbie's great. But
no, she's not. you can be honest here.
No, you know what it is? Because I know people that love Barbie, and I'm not gonna. If you love Barbie, that's fine. But I think the problem is she's never been a great role model. That's the problem. And people think, oh, it's just a doll, but it's not. There are a lot of little girls who looked up to Barbie as wanting to be just like her, look just like her, especially. And it's not a new thing where you go back to, I think it was the 60s when Barbie came out, and they created a slumber party Barbie. And that Barbie doll came with some things to take to a sleepover. And 2 of the things that she brought were a scale and a book that said how to lose weight. And on the inside of the book, it said, "Don't eat."
Oh
and
my God.
I read about that, and I thought, can't be. And then I because I spoke about it in my workshops, I actually found pictures of it. So yeah, and there was another one as well. I can't remember which one it was that also came with similar things. But yeah, it didn't last that long. People complained about it. And the scale was set at 110 pounds, and the book, it said, "Don't eat." So the messages were crazy from the beginning. You fast forward a few years, and what I find interesting is that now we're supposed to love her because Barbie's not just a spokesmodel anymore. Barbie could be a doctor. Barbie could be a teacher, which is fantastic, except that Barbie the doctor is still super skinny with big breasts and, impossible measurements and beautiful. And so they're still perpetuating this image. And it's incredibly unhealthy. And there are a lot of new dolls now on the market that are diverse. So they have different races and different sizes, and that's changing. But yeah, it's Barbie. Yeah, tough. Again, if people love it, great. But just know that it's not, she's not a fantastic role model.
Right, I agree. And then you also talk about Ken and how he evolved and how much more masculine he has become, which is, a total different story. And we're going to get into that a little bit later.
Okay.
So let's jump into the next age group, which is 9 to 12. And I think this is the real this is the age when things really shift, right? That's when they shift from, like you said, from being cute into like being on the verge of dangerous, right? So, so what happens? I'm curious what happens developmentally. If you don't know how to answer that question, that's fine. But I'm just curious if you know what is happening developmentally, like psychologically at this age. It's around 9 or 10 that makes a girl more susceptible to obsessing about her weight.
Well, I mean, there's a few things. I think for one thing, puberty is coming into play. There are a lot of kids starting puberty around that age, and that's really tough because I think a lot of kids aren't prepared for that. A lot of parents aren't. I've had parents come to me and say they were concerned because I had one mom say her daughter was eating more than usual, and she was very active, but she was gaining some weight. And I asked her how old she was, and she said 11. And I said, that's puberty. That's okay. And I told her not to be afraid of it because her fear was going to transfer to a fear that her daughter was going to have. And the last thing you want to do at this time is have her be afraid of the changes, the natural healthy changes in her body, and start dieting, which is going to counter that and actually make it unhealthy and cause damage down the road. So there's puberty, that's a big factor. But also at that age, that's when peers come into play. That's when it shifts from your parents being the end-all be-all to your friends being the end-all be-all. And that's when it gets really tricky because
you lose control.
Until then you had a lot more. I mean, they're still in your home, so there's still some control there. But as far as what they're hearing, they leave your house and they're at school all day. And so they're talking to other people and they're talking to friends who are hearing messages from their parents and their parents' friends and their siblings and their siblings. The messages are coming now, opened up a whole new world. And so, again, we lose a little bit of control, a little bit of influence is a better word than control. I think we lose a little bit of influence, and the influence is coming more from their peers. And now from social media. And I'll tell you, I was at a coffee shop not that long ago, and I tend to, when I hear people talking about things that interest me, I have no problem jumping in and asking questions. And there were a group of kids, I think the boy was 12 and 2 girls that were 13, and they were talking about stuff. And I asked them, what is the biggest influence on your self-esteem? And they said social media. So even then the boys said that too. So, and I asked positively, negatively, and they said negatively, all 3 of them. So even at that young an age, at 12 years old, they're being most influenced by social media.
Right. And yesterday, you're reminding me, yesterday I was at the library with my kids and I came across a book. It's called, you know how that there's the song, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. so the book is called Girls Just Want to Have Likes. And it's so true what you're saying. Yeah. And it's all about those likes. And yeah. And you know what? I am 34 and I'm not a girl anymore, but this still is kind of like it messes with your psyche. You know? Yes. So I totally understand how vulnerable they are at their young age, at this transitional age, to this stuff. It's really, really, it's powerful stuff.
Yeah, it is.
And I love how in the book you're saying that puberty is the part of the transition between being a kid and being an adult. And I can just add from my from the work that I do, and I do a lot of work around hormones and understanding how the body functions, like how to live in a female body. It's a lot of this understanding, and you write this in the book, is that when the body is flooded with hormones, you will feel like you need more food so that you can grow and transition. So yeah, I wish more moms could just be in peace with this piece of information, because I can tell you how many moms come to me so that I work with their teenage girls and help them to lose the weight, because it's obvious that moms are struggling with their daughters being at a certain weight more than even the girl.
They fear. You know what? It's such a fear. It all comes from fear. We all have the best intentions with our kids, but it's just fear. And I think we forget. I know we forget that our bodies are these amazing machines. They really are. They're incredible. The things that they do every day, it's amazing. We take it for granted. And I think I was thinking about this recently too, is that we don't listen to our bodies. Somebody had posted recently something about how I just don't know how to eat anymore. There are just, what
Right.
diet do you follow? And it
It's
goes
confusing,
back to,
right? It's
because you've got so many different people trying to manipulate our feelings to make us vulnerable to buy their product. And really, our bodies are telling us what they want. So especially with puberty, when their bodies want more, it's because it's working harder. It's like when you exercise or when anything, at different times, our bodies need more. And we have to listen to that. What we do is we stop listening because there's all these, I want this, but I should do this instead. I want this, but I shouldn't do this. We let our shame and our guilt and our emotion take over the logical part of it. Our bodies know when they're hungry. Our bodies know when they're full. Our bodies know what they're craving. It's not easy. It's a simple idea. It's not easy to follow because so much comes into it, so much emotion. But really, if we let our bodies do what they're supposed to do, then we'll be okay. So with puberty especially, and boys also, they gain weight in different ways. And we're so afraid every time the scale goes up, we're not realizing that that's what our bodies are supposed to do. If we're not gaining weight at certain times, then that's not the good thing. Weight loss isn't always a sign of good health. You have to take in the whole picture. And I think sometimes parents forget that when it comes to puberty. And again, that's a really, really crucial time for kids to know, like, I'm going to trust my body. I know I'm doing the right things. I'm eating well, I'm exercising. My body is changing. I'm going to trust those changes. We have to help our kids feel comfortable with the changes instead of fear them, because that's when things get dangerous.
Right, which is again very hard to do when you yourself, as an adult, are having these issues. So I was curious. I'm curious to know: are you familiar with the work of Evelyn Tribole, the intuitive eating?
No, I've seen a lot, not her particularly, but
because this is what I've started doing in my practice, which is going away from that diet culture into, because a lot of people that come to me, I want to do the paleo, or I want to do the gluten free. And it's like, I see how people are wrapping their heads around this. Yeah. And so this perspective is really liberating. So there is this, and then there is also a book by Linda Bacon. She talks about, you've heard about that. Health at every size. And this is it's just so liberating, I think, for us moms to understand, and also to raise our kids from that place of just self-discovery, being really curious about ourselves, and just really tune into the wisdom of the body, like you mentioned.
Because we think we know where our bodies are supposed to be. And statistically, I'm trying to remember what the number is now, but I think it's maybe 20 pounds. Whatever we think we're supposed to be as women, we're actually supposed to be a little bit heavier than that. We see ourselves bigger than we are. That's the thing. And so we don't really know what weight we're supposed to be at. We think we know because it's our judgment coming into it. But if we just listened again, and it's hard. Look, it took me 30 years to figure it out, and a horrible eating disorder. It took me a long time to kind of go, no, I eat, and it's not easy every single day, but there isn't a food that I banned from my diet. And I had a bit of a thing with somebody recently on Facebook, actually. A friend had posted something about dieting, and I said it all comes down to balance and moderation. And somebody had said, no, I don't think it's ever okay to eat something that has sugar or fat or whatever. And for me, I said, well, that's why we're all different. But I won't ban any, unless it's super dangerous. But I think it's okay, it's my personal belief, it's okay sometimes to eat something just because it tastes good.
Yes.
Even if it doesn't have a nutritional power punch, just because it tastes good. You don't want to live on that because you just won't feel well. Forget the weight gain. You're just not going to feel well if you're always eating foods like that. But you know what? It's food's pleasure. And I want to enjoy what I want to enjoy without feeling guilt about it after. And if you do that, if you let yourself enjoy the things you like, then you're going to have it in moderation. It's when we say, I can't have that, and then we think about it constantly, we tend to overdo it when we do have it because we feel bad and all these feelings come into it. But really, I absolutely agree with you. We have to trust our bodies. What happens is we ignore the messages for so long that what happens with an eating disorder, it's like our body stops sending those messages. We stop knowing when we're hungry. We stop knowing when we're full. We stop knowing what we're craving. And then everything gets crazy. So it's really important to just listen, trust your body. Your body's there to protect you and to help you. It's not there to hurt you. So it's important to trust ourselves again.
Right. And I think as someone who is growing up, it's really hard to do because you're thinking, well, I've been raised by, you know, my parents, and then I go to school. These people clearly know more than me. So who am I to trust this craving that I have? I might be crazy. It's really hard. But I guess this is where people like you get into the picture, and I'm glad that you're visiting schools and you are creating the space for them to share, you know, and learn about themselves and these cravings. And I think it's really important, the work that you're doing. So again, I acknowledge that.
I've said this already, that I feel it's become more of a rebellious act to say that I eat sugar, fat, and gluten than if I were to say I was, you know, smoking crack and doing heroin. Like, it's more of a, what do you mean you eat sugar, fat, and gluten? Like, that seems more rebellious of me. But yeah, I do proudly.
Okay, so let's talk about I love chapter 4, and I didn't, you know what, it's so crazy, I didn't, because I grew up in the family of girls, so I'm one of 3, and in my own family I also have 3 girls, so I didn't even ever thought that body image is something that boys struggle with. And then in chapter 4 you say, think body image issues are just for girls, think again. So can you talk a little bit about how boys are struggling with body image?
It's been a thing for a long time. I mean, they probably always have. They always have. But it's absolutely a huge issue for boys now, and for a lot of reasons. First of all, boys have the same emotions and the same feelings as girls do. We just allow girls to express them more. So we hear it more. So sometimes we forget, or we think that boys aren't feeling a certain way only because they're not expressing it. But that's not true. We just don't give them the vocabulary to express it. You walk down the hallway of a high school and you may hear some girls say, oh, I feel fat today. Chances are you're not going to hear a group of boys say that. And what happens oftentimes is that when a boy is feeling uncomfortable or negatively about themselves for any reason, self-esteem wise, they will take it out in different ways. So if they're feeling bad about how they look, they may go to dangerous behaviors like drugs or alcohol, for example. So again, we may not even make the connection as parents that they're doing things like that because they're feeling insecure about who they are. But the pressure for boys comes from 2 ends, because on one hand, I'll hear from boys who are feeling uncomfortable with themselves because they feel like they're too big. They feel like they're too fat. But then I'll also hear from boys who feel like they're too small, because it's not, you know, it's not only about being thin, you also have to have a 6-pack now for boys. And the problem with that also is that I talk about at some point in the book too, and during my workshops, if you watch TV, you watch a lot of the tween shows or the teen shows, and a lot of the actors on those shows are actually in their 20s and sometimes even in their 30s.
Right.
So you've got kids who are in their teens looking at actors who are playing teens. They're in their 20s, and they're looking at their bodies, and they're comparing their healthy, normal 15-year-old bodies to the body of a 25-year-old playing a 16-year-old, and they feel like they don't measure up. That creates negative self-esteem. So again, with them, social media, TV, movies, that's a huge, huge, huge pressure. There's also pressure. They say that a big portion of their negative self-esteem comes from female, like women's magazines, because boys are looking at the magazines and seeing all these perfect women who don't really exist and thinking that they have to be a certain way to ever get a woman like that. A lot of ads for colognes and hair stuff for boys too have changed a lot and are all about, you need to use our product in order to get girls. So boys are feeling it at a very, very young age. You look at also athletes, for example, and a lot of athletes, female and male athletes, the ones who get the most attention aren't necessarily the ones who are the most talented, but oftentimes they're the hottest ones. So you'll have certain athletes who, again, are getting tons of attention because of how they look. So that tells a kid, not only do I have to be great at what I do, but I also have to look good while I'm doing it. And that's an added pressure. So, yeah, so it's important to know that boys feel it just as much as girls. I did a workshop in Montreal a year ago, and I was speaking to grade 4s and 5s, and most of the kids who stayed to talk to me afterwards were boys. I did another workshop for parents, and a lot of the moms who spoke to me after were concerned about their sons. So it's definitely more of an issue now than it ever was.
Right. And I also think I read this amazing book, which I'm going to link to that in the show notes. It's called Masks of Masculinity by Lewis Howes. And you mentioned that too in the book. He said, you talk about the fact that when boys grow up, they're hearing that they need to man up or suck it up. And the problem with this is that we do want them to be vulnerable, open up, but you need to be a man at a certain, in certain situations. And so it's sort of like a double messaging that boys are getting. And it's definitely, it definitely looks like it's challenging for them.
For sure. It's like you have to be masculine, but not too masculine, but then you have to be too feminine. But for sure. There's always, it comes down to there's no right way to be a girl. There's no right way to be a boy. But society is still, no matter how many quotes we see on Facebook telling us to love ourselves just the way we are, there's just still so much more judgment out there telling us that we should love ourselves the way we are as long as everybody agrees with how we love ourselves. And there's still too much judgment out there.
Right. So let's shift gears a little bit. I know that body image usually pertains to people who are struggling with weight, with their weight, with extra weight. And I love this chapter 5, where you talk about the fact that also kids who are too skinny are struggling with body image as well. So can you talk about that as well?
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing, body image. So it's not a body image. Our personal body image is how we see ourselves. And I think oftentimes we'll look at somebody and assume how they feel about themselves. And we can never really know that. I had a woman share with me that when she was in high school and through university, she was very thin, and her teachers were always sending notes home saying that she was anorexic. And she wasn't. And she would give anything to have a curvier body and bigger breasts and a rounder bum. But that's just not how she was made. But there is judgment there as well. And I think, again, the media and society has created these really impossible to attain perfect bodies that we're supposed to live up to. And it's just the right amount of fat in the right places that are really, it's just impossible to put like that. So I think there's pressure. There's pressure. Absolutely. It's not a weight thing. And again, you can look at somebody who is, according to society, overweight, and they could absolutely love themselves as they should. And you can have somebody who you think probably wakes up every morning, looks in the mirror and says, "You look fantastic," who is actually really, really hard on themselves and finding it hard to get dressed and go face the world because they don't think that they look good enough. So what it comes down to is our self-esteem, our body image is about how we feel about ourselves. And it has really nothing to do with how we look and everything to do with how we feel about how we look.
Right. And I also love how in the book you say food should not be thought of as good or bad. Food is just food. And also you say here, if we keep telling children how, what, and even when to eat, they'll never learn how to listen to their natural instincts around food, and will grow up eating for reasons that have nothing to do with hunger, which is why so many of us turn to food to deal with emotional issues. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is so powerful. I also wanted to ask you, and I have come across this many times in my journey of, as a mom, is how to deal with people who are, they're not even strangers, people who are really close to you in your extended family, who feel like, it's clear that they're having body image, issues of their own. And then they are making comments, about my kids' bodies. So I wanted you to maybe give us some ideas of like maybe a script or something we can say that we can still stay in, in a good relationship with them, right. In a respectful relationship, but still, ask them and make them change the way they are talking to our kids.
Yeah, I think that's very, very important. I think you need to think of it this way. Any kind of negative talk around our kids is dangerous and hazardous to their health. If somebody is putting down themselves, their weight, their food, their diet in front of our kids, it's dangerous, especially if somebody is putting down our kids' weight, if they're making comments about our kids, or if they're making comments, oh, you're going for a second helping, or do you really think you should have that piece of cake? It's dangerous. And in the same way that you wouldn't let your friends light a cigarette in front of your kids, probably, or offer your kids tequila, or give them a drug, and you would have no problem with that. You saw your friend going to give your 6-year-old a cigarette, you'd say, don't do that. It's the same thing when it comes to negative messages about who they are and about how they look. It's that serious. And so there's, first of all, 2 things. I think that it's important, if somebody says something negative about your kid, with your kid to their face, you need to immediately say something, immediately counter that message by saying that they're wrong, to let your child know that you're on their side and that message was wrong. Then it's incredibly important that you take that person aside and you let them know respectfully that you know that they love your child as well, and that you all want the same thing, which is to have your child grow up healthy and happy. And the only way that's going to happen is if they do that with the right influences around them. And that it's really important that the messages that they're getting are positive ones. So it's crucial that they understand that the negative messages are not welcome in your home. My thing is this: if somebody gets angry at you for that, they have an issue. If somebody gets mad at you, or somebody says that they can't do that, if somebody cannot come into your home without mentioning diet or weight or commenting on how they look, how you look, how your child looks, then they've got some issues that they need to deal with before they're around your family again. That's their issue. And you can't let their problems, make you feel guilty about or bad about how you respond to it. Your kid's health is the number 1 priority. And it's important, again, I can't stress this enough, that the messages and the influences around them are healthy ones. No diet talk, no fat talk, no insulting themselves, you or your children. It's just not okay.
Yeah, I agree. It's really challenging to do when this person is your mom, or when it's your mother-in-law.
You know what though? It's not, because again, you don't have to say, if you say this, you're not welcome. But to take it, like I said before, as I know that you want what's best for them. I know that you love them. But because you love them and you want to help me raise them in the most healthiest way possible, we need to stop the negative messages. That's what it comes down to. And then you have to remember, if it keeps persisting, then that's when you have to put your foot down, because it's your child. And your relationship with that person will be fixed. It will be fine. Your child's health may not be fine if this compounds and turns into a lifelong disorder, because it's devastating. So your relationship can be repaired. Their self-esteem will be much harder to repair. And that's where your concern should be.
Yes. I can tell you that, just the personal example of my own life. My dad, obviously, he has his own body image issues, and he would come home, and the first thing he would say, he wouldn't even say hi. It would be like, oh, your butt's bigger. Wow. And I mean, like, at this point, it sort of became like a joke. He doesn't say it to hurt me. I am at this stage of my personal growth that I understand that it's because he doesn't understand and he doesn't get it, and it comes from his own struggle. But the thing is, and honestly, I didn't even say anything until he started making comments about my daughter's body. Then, like you said, I had to put my foot down. I made sure that I don't put him on the spot. I didn't shame him in front of everybody. I made sure it's just me and him. And I was very explicit, that I will not allow this. And you know what? Actually, it works. It actually works. It actually works.
That's right. If you don't say anything, there's no chance of it working. So might as well give it a shot. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay, so I also want to talk about, because I mean, like, we understand that, we are, all of us are on our own health journeys, are on our own journeys to healing. But what do you do when, let's say, you've been really overweight, not just a little bit slightly overweight, but actually in a non-healthy way? Like, you've been sabotaging, you've been really abusing your body with food, you as yourself as an adult, and then you are realizing that it's time for you to lose weight. And you talk about this in the book too. So how do you approach this? How do you explain, how do you talk about your journey, to lose the weight in a way that is not destructive to the kids?
And it's not that difficult, in the sense that you just keep it about health. I always say, I've said a million times that it's always important to love yourself, that it doesn't matter what the scale says, it doesn't matter what size you wear. You're no more or less deserving of love and respect from yourself or other people, whether you're more than you want to weigh, exactly what you want to weigh, or less than you want to weigh. However, I think there's a difference between loving who you are and loving where you are. And that's where things can kind of get controversial, I guess. And my point with that is that always love who you are. Who you are is who you are. I don't care if you're 300 pounds overweight or you're 50 pounds underweight or you're exactly where you should be. You're worth loving and you're worth respecting. Your worth does not change. However, because you're worth something, because you deserve to be healthy and you deserve to be happy, then that's when you want to make changes to your life to do the right thing for you. You love yourself enough to make changes. So if you're somebody who is very overweight and unhealthy, there's nothing wrong with showing your kids, you know what? I don't feel good. Not, I don't like the way I look. Not, I want to fit into a bikini. Not, I want to get into my skinny jeans. None of that. That's the unhealthy stuff. It's I want to have more energy. I want to be able to play with you longer. I want to be able to go for walks with you. I want to be able to dance with you. That's the stuff that you can say. And so because of that, because I love myself and I want to be able to play longer and run faster and have more energy, I'm changing the way I'm doing something. So it's okay to show, I'm not against changing your diet. Absolutely change it. But again, don't make it about aesthetics. So it's not because I don't like the way I look, it's because I don't like the way I feel and I want to feel healthier. So I'm doing something good for myself. Oftentimes we diet as a punishment. I don't like myself. I'm going to like myself if I lose 10 pounds. No, I like myself, which is why I'm going to lose this weight, because I like myself. So I'm going to eat differently, and I'm going to find fun recipes for us that, and have your kids get involved. Let's find food that we haven't eaten before, certain vegetables or fruits, and let's find new recipes that are good. And let's go for family walks more. And after dinner, let's go for a walk. Let's go to the park. Make it fun. I always say, living a healthy lifestyle isn't something we should do because we hate ourselves. It should be something we do because we love ourselves. And that's a great message to tell your kids. I don't feel great. I don't have energy. I don't feel strong. I want to feel healthy and strong and fit. And so I'm going to make these positive changes to do that. It's all in the way that you message it. I'm not dieting because I don't like myself as a negative. I am making changes because I like myself and I want to have more energy and feel better. That's a great message.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that. Can you also talk a little bit about postpartum moms? Because I know I have a lot of moms in the community who have just had babies, and I can't even tell you how many times I get calls from moms who just had their babies 2 weeks ago, and they're already, they already want to go back to their pre-baby bodies.
It's so hard. I know it. What's a shame is that oftentimes there are women who can't even enjoy the pregnancy, because even while they're pregnant, they're already worried about the pressure to lose the baby weight after. They're worried about every pound that they gain. And I think we forget, I think we forget that we're growing human beings in our bodies. That's a big deal.
Yes.
I will never forget when I was pregnant with my first, and my friend was over with my friend Risa and her husband Wynn. And I remember Wynn saying to my husband at the time, what'd you do today? Because Marci grew a nervous system. What did you do? There's nothing bigger than when you're pregnant. You're growing a person in your body. And then when you deliver them, they're a full person. They're a baby. So the fact that we expect our bodies to go back to the way they were before so quickly, if ever, it's really unfair. It's so unfair to us. And the other thing too, when we're pregnant, it affects us in every way. It affects us psychologically, emotionally, right? Every part of our body is affected. And yet it's like we expect certain changes, but we expect our bodies to just stay the same. And it's so unfair for women, because this is we should feel so empowered by this. We should feel so amazing after this. And it's also such a gift. You know, it's tough because there are so many women who are hard on their bodies. They have more stomach than they want. They have stretch marks that they didn't have before. And then you have women who would die to have the stretch marks and would give anything to have the extra stomach because they can't have children and they want children. So it's such a miracle that we've almost taken for granted. And again, it's such a pressure on women where take your time. Like, again, I think you grew a foot, you grew a head, you grew a person. Now relax a little bit. And also, like, this is again when the trust in your body comes into play, because your body knows where it wants to be. So there's there's no need to go on any crazy diet. Give yourself a break. Right now, your body's been working like crazy for 9 months. It's work. It's been working like crazy, sustaining 2 people. So it needs to rest when it can rest. And you need to feed it when it needs food. And it will do what it needs to do. Just like puberty. If you starve it when it needs more from you, then you're going to mess up your metabolism and then create weight issues later on. If you're going to deprive your body when it needs your support, it's going to work. That's going to work against you. So be kind to yourself. You know, I'm sure these women are being super kind to their children, to their babies, to the other children if they have them, to their spouse, but they're not being as kind to themselves, and they need to be kind to themselves. Don't worry. That's what I would say, is just don't worry. Enjoy this time with your baby. Your body's it's not going to work against you. Your body will settle, and then you can get back into doing what you need to do. Again, not in a restrictive, intense way. Just listen to your body. Your body is your friend. Your body is working with you, not against you. So don't work against it by overdoing it or under eating.
But again, I just want to say that it's not easy to do, especially like going back to the social media world. And in the book, you also talk about the topic of celebrity pregnancy, like weight loss. It's really not. It's really difficult to do. You know, you see Kim Kardashian and J Lo and all of these celebrities. Like, where are the stretch marks?
Well, all right. Well, we know. I mean, first of all, if you're looking at them in a magazine, they've been photoshopped out. So that's easy. But also, you know, you don't want to be spending more time on your treadmill than with your toddler. You don't want to be so tired from exercising that you can't play with your baby. You don't want to be so exhausted from starving yourself that you can't give attention to your baby. Like, that's the thing. Our priorities are different. And to put so much pressure on ourselves to look a certain way, it's such a waste of time. And we're seeing we can't look at celebrities because they're really not the real people that they are. We don't see. So we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. So to just assume that we know, we can't. But I wouldn't want that pressure. I would not want, imagine just giving birth and then you walk out of the hospital and there's a million paparazzi. That's a whole other kind of, that's trauma. Imagine people waiting to take your picture and put it and plastered everywhere. So they are under a crazy amount of pressure that I would not want. So let's be grateful that we can, you know, go 3 days without showering because, you know, we didn't get the chance because we have a newborn. And it's okay. That's part of life. It's okay. You know, no guilt, no shame.
I just have to mention that, and you probably, Marci, know about this documentary. It's called Embrace, One Woman's Journey to Inspire Everybody. Oh, have you heard of this? Oh my God. And I bring this up because you mentioned this, appreciating the body and that other women would kill to have stretch marks. It's because, and this is the story of that kind of mom who spent more time on the treadmill than being present with her kids. And so she decided that, you know, this doesn't matter anymore. And she just embraces the body that she has right now. And like, it's a beautiful movie, documentary. It's freedom. It's really, really liberating. So my last question before we move into the second part of the interview is, like, we spoke about body image, but can you mention a little bit about the actual dangers of a negative body image?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So there are so many ways that it affects us. Again, physically, emotionally, psychologically. I battled my disorder from being a teenager into my 30s, and so I know the damage on all 3 of those levels. And I think emotionally is probably the hardest. But negative body image doesn't always lead to an eating disorder. It can. But even negative body image, if you look at it just from without looking at the dangers yet. So if you look at it, how it affects us, kids who suffer from negative body image don't do as well in school. They'll drop out of sports and activities. They'll lose friendships. So it's very isolating. So just your growth as a human being is diminished. In the workplace, people who don't feel confident about who they are, they will not walk into a room and command it the way they need to. And so it's going to affect them career-wise. So it affects school, job, relationships. So that's huge because that's pretty much everything. Then if you look at it from the physical point, so if you do take a body image and it develops into an eating disorder, and there's so many different kinds. I mean, I battled my own from anorexia to overeating to overexercising, and they all have their own dangers. But eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of any mental health issue with teenagers. That's huge. So it is considered a mental health issue and has the highest mortality rate. That could be from suicide. It can also be from heart failure. I know too many people who died too young from the battle that they put their bodies through, from starvation and then overeating or overexercising, taking diuretics. So, and there are a lot of signs that parents should look for. There's physical signs and then there's more psychological signs. So physical signs, and it's tough with teenagers because some of them are just teenage signs. Like if your kid is moody, that could be an example. But if your kid's teenager, they're going to be moody. But significant weight loss, significant weight gain, skin pale, nails breaking, hair brittle.
Loss of menstrual cycle.
Loss of menstrual cycle for sure.
Right.
Fainting, change in skin tone. But again, things like dropping out of activities that they used to love, not hanging out with friends. Things to look for that are kind of harder to see are liking certain foods. Like your kid might say all of a sudden they develop this real passion for broccoli and that's all they'll eat. And that seems great. They love broccoli. Broccoli is healthy, but it's actually because there's a fear of eating anything else. Sometimes they'll have one specific bowl or plate that they'll eat from because it's the right size. You know, too much seems too much and too little seems too little, and that's the only one they want. Sometimes they eat in privacy. I used to eat in my room all the time, not wanting people to see what I ate. There's hiding food, sneaking food. If you find wrappers places, if they're not, I was in a car driving my kids and there was a kid in the back talking about, you know, that they didn't eat breakfast and they probably weren't going to eat lunch. And the mom was, you know, what happens is kids tell their parents sometimes they're not going to eat breakfast because they're going to eat a big lunch, and then they go to school and they don't eat lunch. And so that's what I say also. It's if you think maybe there may be a chance that your kid isn't eating well or is suffering from something, and again I say your kid spends more time at school than at home at a certain age, there's nothing wrong with going to their teachers, right, and seeing what they see and just putting something out there just to say, I'm a little concerned. Are you seeing them eat or whatever? The more people around us helping us, the more support our kids have, the better. But yeah, negative body image can lead to eating disorders, which can lead to death. There's no other way. I won't candy coat it anymore. It can absolutely lead to death. Right.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Oh, Marci, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Before I let you go, I have 4 questions that I ask all of my guests.
Oh boy. Okay.
They're fun. Don't worry. So the first question is, this show is all about inspiring mothers to thrive as women, as wives and mothers. And I like calling it being a goddess in your life. So I'm curious to know, how are you being a goddess in your own life? How do you take care of yourself, your soul, your body? What are some of your non-negotiables?
Ooh, wow. That's really, wow. Oh my God. You know what? I will be honest with you and tell you that was something it took me a very long time to do. And I've just recently, I'd say in the past year even, learned how to say no. Without guilt. That was huge for me. If it didn't feel right to me, even if it meant disappointing people, even if it meant people I love being mad at me. I found at first it was really tough, but when I said no to things that I knew I should say no to, it became very empowering and healthy for me. So I think my biggest thing now is being comfortable in saying no and disappointing some people when I know it's for the good, the better good.
I love that. All right. What advice does your now mom self would have given to your pre-mom self?
Same thing. It's okay to say no. Seriously, I think you're doing your best. I think that's what I saw my mom do. To me, she was the ultimate mother, and I know she didn't see herself that way. And I saw her be imperfect. And I think it's okay to let your kids see you as a human being and see you be imperfect. I think it helps you, and I think it helps them.
And it helps them understand that you're human, and that's what being human is.
Yep.
Okay, third question. I like to keep it real and show listeners that even though someone is an expert in one area, they might be struggling with other things. So what are some of your current challenges as a woman, wife, or a mother?
Oh my gosh. Wow. What are some of my okay, well, you want to keep it real? We'll keep it real.
Yeah, keep it real.
Okay. So I am somebody who got separated after 22 years of marriage. And my biggest challenge came from having to, being in a partnership for so long and then having to be on my own for the first time since I was 24 years old and learn how to do things for myself on my own. And that was equally terrifying as it was exciting. And I'm still dealing with coming into my own as a woman and doing what's right for me. And the big thing I've learned in the last few months even is that I expect this year a lot of people to look at me and say, she did what? Because I am absolutely doing what my heart is telling me to do. And that's new for me.
Wow. That's incredible. Can I just recommend a book that I think is incredible? Maybe you already know this. Are you familiar with the work of Mama Gina?
No.
The School of Womanly Arts? Oh my gosh. Okay. Grab her book. It's called Pussy. I know it's kind of like the word the name is it's
great.
strange, but like this book, oh gosh, it changed my life. And it's exactly about coming to terms with the fact that you don't really need anybody other than you. And it's a great read. I'll link up to that.
Yeah, I think there's a balance there, because I found that you go through the I don't need anyone, and then you're in the right place, and then that's when you're open up to find that sometimes you let the right people in. So I think I'm lucky enough to be in that position too, where I've let the wrong people go and I've let the right people in.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, Marci,
That's it? Okay, I thought there was one more.
Yeah, one more. Any last advice for new moms?
For new moms, just again, it's so simple. Be good to yourself. Be kind to yourself. There's no rush, and you don't have to be perfect. And do it your way. That's one thing I would say for sure is you're going to get, especially now, I'm glad that when my kids were babies, there wasn't all this social media. You're going to get advice from a million different people. Mm-hmm. You can listen if you want, but then do it your way. If it feels right to you, do it your way.
Yeah. Again, stand in your power, claim your power, and just learn to trust. And it takes practice. No one knows you better than you. No one knows your baby better than you. Believe in yourself. Right. Marci, I would like to end by reading this beautiful pledge that you have at the end of your book. By the way, guys, if you didn't understand this by now, you must get the book. And it goes like this. I promise to always treat myself with love and respect. I promise to be proud of who I am and not let anybody make me feel like I'm not good enough. I won't judge other people on how they look because it's what's on the inside that matters. I will believe in myself and follow my dreams. I don't have to be perfect. I'm great just the way I am. I don't need to be exactly like everybody else because I am unique and special in my own way. I am me and I am magnificent. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Marci. So before I let you go, can you tell people where they can find you, where they can connect with you, where can they get the book, all of that?
Can you show it? Because I didn't see just because I don't think people saw what it looks like.
The book? Oh, yeah. Here it is.
There you go. Okay.
And I have all my notes in here.
So my website is fitversusfiction.com. So FITVSFICTION.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can find everything there about me, and then you can order my book online at Chapters, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Just Google it. You can find me. But that's the best way to reach me. Fitversusfiction.com.
Amazing. Marci, thank you so much for being you, for claiming your power, and for sharing your wisdom and your life journey with all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Health Begins with Mom show. I love hearing from you, so please post your comments and questions over at healthbeginswithmom.com/podcast. If you love the show, please share it on social media and in your real life with other moms who might enjoy this content. And if you have a burning question or topic you'd like me to hit on the show, just drop me a line at dorit@healthbeginswithmom.com. And if you love this show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review, and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Much love and many blessings.